This is Express Training Bites. I am Brandon Petrich. I am the digital media director over at Promo Corner. And today I have promotional industry influencer Britney Godsey. She is with Gold Bond. You guys know the name, you know the face, and she is going to be talking to us today about developing your personal brand to build your company's brand. So, Britney, take it away.
Yeah, thank you for the warm intro, Brandon. I really appreciate that. And shout out to all you brand bosses that are out there live watching this right now. If you're watching it, we know that you care about your business and you're here to learn. So I'm excited to talk to you, really excited about this opportunity to share with you exactly what I do. So here's the way that I had this planned. We actually got a couple of questions in ahead of time, which I think is phenomenal because you guys are already excited to learn about building your own brand. And then what I want to do is answer those questions and then walk you through exactly what I did to get started, because when you're first starting out, sometimes it's confusing and it can be a little complicated and there's so many things out there that you don't know what to do. So I figured what not better to do than to show you exactly what I did so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did getting started out. So today, talking about your personal brand, what does that mean? When we were first talking about curating this episode, it was really about, hey, you guys are probably out there as individual sales reps of your organization, and you're trying to figure out, I've got this great company image, but I want to engage socially one-on-one with maybe some of my clients or potential prospect clients so that they get to know me in a different way, or I might be able to extend my reach in some form or fashion, right? So what does that exactly look like? Because social media can be a little confusing, and it's really a lot of gray area in terms of what is good to post and what is not. So I figured this is where those questions come in first, and we're going to go ahead and answer those if you don't mind, and then I'll dive into exactly what I do, and hopefully it gives you a couple of quick tips that you can turn around and use today so that you can get started. But let's see here. Employees have IG accounts that are Gold Bond and then their name to help further the Gold Bond brand. That's true. So for instance, my Instagram name is Gold Bond Gal Britney, but you might see somebody like Gold Bond Hannah or Gold Bond Amanda or whatever the case may be, right? So the question is, was this a marketing strategy or did they take a cue? So it actually happened really organically. And I think that's an interesting kind of fun fact because it does seem like it was strategic, right? So it was kind of a beautiful happenstance that came about, but I would highly suggest it only because people that may be looking at your company already, that makes it so much easier to find you as a personal brand. If they're searching for your company, then your name is organically going to pop up alongside your company. So then they start to associate the two. And that may also help get you some organic following because if they're looking for the company and they stumble upon your page or your profile, they may have an inkling to go and check it out, right? Or go, ooh, so-and-so works there. Maybe that's how I can get in touch with them for sales. So I would highly suggest it, even though it wasn't a true strategy that we adopted, it kind of came about organically. Definitely one for you to consider whenever you're creating your profile name, right? Because sometimes if you're just putting your name out there, that may not tell the story of who you are and what you do. So they may not necessarily be inclined to go and naturally tap on your profile to see what's going on. But good question. The next question, how you incorporate Gold Bond pieces into everyday use, lifestyle images and videos. So I actually have a little tic-tac-toe game that we're going to play later that feeds into this very question, but I think it's a good one because it's really great to express variety in your profile. Because if you're kind of like me, let's just open up your Instagram or your Facebook right now. When you start scrolling, you're looking for things that really kind of make the person stop, right? Like stop doing this action right here and what's going on there. And sometimes when you're posting blend imagery or product photos, that can get a little monotonous over time. And sometimes people don't even know what the product is or how it's used. So switching up the variety of content that you use is so critical. And if you're somebody who's a little camera shy, then go find a space that you feel comfortable in. If video, live, documentaries like this right here, right now is maybe not your forte or not something that you even want to start to explore, there's tons of cool ways that you can do video without ever actually being the one on camera. I highly suggest that you get a little more comfortable with showing yourself off only because that hones in that personal brand and gets you that recognition as an industry or an authoritative expert of whatever it is that you're showing and selling by using your face to kind of explain things. So yes, Gold Bond does a ton of variety. You'll see Brandon and I actually talked about it earlier. Even when we hire new people, we do a little get to know you segment as a new sales rep or a new associate, so that people out there watching our feed feel like they're engaged with our company and they kind of know what's going on a day-to-day basis. We'll switch it up from getting to know our sales reps to getting to know the people out in production that really make the magic happen behind the scenes. And then we also give video footage on just updates of things that are going on, whether it's the state of the business considering the pandemic that's taking place, or maybe some spiffs and specials that we're running in the midst of the pandemic to try to help promote, generate new business. All of those things add value in some form or fashion, and that's something to keep in mind whenever you're looking at content or idea generation for what you're posting, because if it's not a value add, then it gets a little tough to keep that person captivated. And finding that perfect blend between sharing your personal life and sharing your corporate life can be kind of confusing. So we're going to touch on that in a little bit here when we get to the quick how-tos. Next question, using videos to update what you're doing and what the company is doing. So yes, absolutely. So that kind of goes along with what we just talked about. Another fun thing that we did, which has absolutely nothing to do with Gold Bond, is just talking about the philanthropic aspects of our business. So for instance, we engage in several different platforms for give back movements. You may have seen our gift with purchase program, where anytime you buy certain products, you can automatically get a gift card, or you can choose to donate the money that would be on the gift card back to one of 6 charities of your choice. And they're all across the board, from wounded warriors to breast cancer awareness and things like that. So I think touching on those things are really imperative for people to get to know what your company culture is like and what it's all about. But then we also posted a couple of things, or I did rather, on my personal page, where I'm participating in a Dare to Dance event, which is so embarrassing and so outside of my comfort zone, but in a way I'm so excited to do it because it's such an amazing cause. But it's for the Kidney Foundation, and it's basically like Dancing with the Stars, but on a local level. So I'm totally willing to get out there and make fun of myself if it helps raise money for charity. So just showing things off like that has nothing to do with Gold Bond, even though Gold Bond's a sponsor. Appreciate you guys. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not post worthy, right? I think that adds to people getting to understand who you are as an individual as well. And that will only enhance your personal brand. So good question. Do you post every day? Man, everybody always asks this question, and the answer is heck no. I mean, I know a ton of people that absolutely post every day like clockwork, and they're so good at it, and mass props to those guys, because I'm just not built for that. And I think a lot of you guys that are out there watching, you probably have a lot going on in your life outside of social media, right? Especially right now with kids, school, work, home and work colliding, and your whole day-to-day routine being completely distorted. The last thing that might be on your mind outside of scrolling is actually posting. So for me personally, I try to post a couple of times a week, and I never want to get to where I'm posting irrelevant or invaluable content for the sake of posting consistently. For me, consistency is that couple of times a week. And I think that's important to notice, because a lot of people develop a wave of anxiety when it comes to that, and feeling the pressure to have to do it every day and always be on and always be posting this fantastic and phenomenal content. Value comes in all shapes and sizes. Doesn't mean it has to be every single day. If you're knowledge bombing on a consistent basis, then people are going to recognize you for that. And I think that's the important takeaway. But other people may have a different opinion, and that's okay too. And last question before we dive into the goodies. Do you try to mix in a Gold Bond post after so many personal posts, or is it more organic, meaning like whenever the mood hits? So this actually hits on, I'll go ahead and use this as the first kind of point or tip. In the beginning, if you look at my social feed, it's actually very embarrassing. So I would encourage you to not scroll too deep down to the base, because you'll see I was obviously obsessed with filters and didn't know that less is more in those infancy stages. But I also wasn't really recognizing how my feed looked whenever I was posting things on a regular basis, and how it might look overall when somebody comes to the page. So my first suggestion for you guys is to get a grid planner. And we'll talk about that, well, here in a second. But this is actually mine right here. I use youre. UNUM, and I'm not sure if you guys can see it. It's that little piece. Ooh, right there. It's kind of weird doing it on camera. But this is actually a grid planner so that I can take all of the pictures that I have in my arsenal and then plan them out so that I can start seeing what it looks like once it's actually on the page. And that was so helpful for me because I didn't realize how much I was going maybe overboard with personal stuff because it was easy to do on the fly or when I went somewhere versus doing something that was maybe goal bond related or helpful hint wise related. So I would highly suggest it. There's a ton of them out there. Unum is just the version that I use. Unum is actually free, and that's how I got onto it. And then I think once you do it for so long, meaning so much of your grid, you might have to upgrade it. But I highly suggest it. There's a ton of other ones out there. I would just Google social media grid planner and you'll see a ton of them pop up and just pick the one that works for you. The reason why I happen to like that one is because I can actually take and post right there from that grid, write out my caption and everything. So then I'm not kind of trying to toggle between different platforms in order to get everything together. I kind of use that as my lifeline, upload my photos or videos, and then just click to post and drop the caption in. And I can even plan the caption ahead of time if something epiphany-wise comes to me. So I like that a lot. If I was you, I would highly suggest it. It'll also help with the aesthetic layout, which we're about to dive into. So that was tip number one, grid planner, right? Highly suggest it. Unum is mine. The first tip that I was actually going to say was branding guidelines. When you're building a personal brand, it's like an organization. You are your own entity, right? So make sure that you're consistent in your aesthetic and the way that you portray yourself, because that's important. People love stability and consistency, and they feel like that's how they kind of connect and get to know you. So it's really important that you engage or utilize all of your tools in that fashion. So when we talk about branding guidelines, what the hell does that mean? So if it was me, here's my suggestions, and here's actually what I did. Choose a color palette. And I know that that sounds crazy, but when you're actually building your feed and you're looking for backgrounds and things, choose a color palette. That way you find consistent backgrounds that you can use when you're showcasing product, or maybe you're doing a video like this, or you're using text even in your video or your pictures. That consistent color palette will make a huge difference. I suggest no more than five being the absolute max, and make sure you actually have some contrast in your palette. So for instance, you'll see a lot of this aqua color, this mint color that we actually just rolled out, and pink in mine. Those are my lighter colors. And then my darker colors are more like a navy, a purple, and a black, right? So then that allows me to add contrast to my photos so that when I apply text, I'll put dark text on light backgrounds and light text on dark backgrounds. And you'd be surprised at how complicated or how simple that sounds, but how complicated it is in the moment when you don't realize that you're not using consistency. It looks a little wild on the page when you start going off the path there. So that would be my suggestion. And then fonts too. I suggest 2 fonts, one bolder to use as kind of like your main font, and then maybe a secondary font. So for me, you'll see kind of a more plain text as my bold font, and then more of a scribbly kind of look for my add-on. And I'll interchange those as we go, but as I post video footage or photos, I'll adopt those 2 pretty consistently so that when people see it, they also kind of get familiar with recognizing that that's one of mine, right? That's a native post for me, or that's an original piece of content for me. So Unum was number 1, branding guidelines number 2, filters. Let's talk about it. Don't make the same mistake that I did. If you're a filter king or queen, I went a little excessive on that because I was like, ooh, look at all the pretty, right? And I didn't realize how actually less can be more. So if you're somebody who thinks that you might be adopting filters whenever you're taking photos or videos, I would suggest that you go in and plan those ahead of time. And that goes alongside your branding guidelines. Maybe 3 to 5 filters that all have kind of a similar look and feel with just a slightly different hue or variation. That way you still have that consistency and coherent look, but you're able to mix and match it according to what might look best for that particular photo or video. So if you're looking for something, there's a ton of them out there. Arrow presets, 123presets.com, and they all actually have spiffs that run pretty regularly if you'd want to go outside of the normal playground that you see on Instagram or InShot, any of those, right? Because they all have their own built-in filters. but I would suggest maybe going and just taking a look, because they also do a good job of showing you a smattering of photos that adopt those presets or those filters, so that you can kind of see if that's something that you might be interested for yourself and your personal brand. So grid planner, branding guidelines, filters. Make sure you have them. You got to have them. Then take advantage of the freemiums that are out there, man. Don't reinvent the wheel on creativity. I think the hardest thing for people is content and making it look good, which unfortunately are the two biggest things. But when you're trying to figure out, how do I put this product on here or this special or spiff and kind of make it pop or make it look really attractive, that can be tough to do. I use Canva, Canva.com. You don't have to use what I use. That was just the first one that I found, and I happened to take to it, and it worked really well for me. But the reason why I like Canva is because it has so many different templates for so many different things, including social media. But when you're building a personal brand, again, you got to think about that consistency, guys. So your social posts, your presentations, your slide decks, your product pitches, your flyers, all of those things kind of need to have the same look and feel for people to recognize your name and your brand with when they see those particular colors or themes. And Canva does a really good job of laying out templates that are all over the board, but you can still manipulate them. And they all have a social media version, a product presentation version, a marketing or media kit version. So go in and use it. They also have a branding guidelines piece in there. I'm not exactly sure if that's in the free version or not, but definitely take a look if you're still kind of stuck trying to figure out what calls or speaks to you and your ideal audience, because that's another important thing to remember is who is your ideal audience that you want to engage with your personal brand. Make sure you're thinking of those things whenever you're building that out, because you don't want to be the opposite of whatever they are, right? Because then they may not necessarily find you as organically or follow you as organically. All right. And then my last tip. So we went through the grid planner, the branding guidelines, the filters, the freemiums. Now my last tip of the day is that tic-tac-toe game that I was talking about. And this is when it comes to content, which is so hard for everybody, including myself. I had to break it down real simple for me. These are the questions. So just bear with me here. What I did was I made a little tic-tac-toe box like this. So if you're watching this right now, just grab a pen and a piece of paper, make yourself a little tic-tac-toe box like this. Now, what each of these boxes are going to represent is a different type of content, so that you don't make the same mistake that I did and see yourself actually posting the same type of content over and over, and now you're lost in this wave that doesn't have any variety, so you're not mixing it up for your audience, right? So let's just take this top one, and let's just say maybe it is editor picks, and that means that you're picking your favorite products out there in the industry, and you're giving a picture of them or feedback on them in some way. If it's a video, doesn't have to be a picture, but that's just your way of making sure that you're going, okay, I need to post an editor pick type product. What is it? Why is it your favorite? And why would it be good to use, right? Those are just, start coming up with those types of things. Let's go to another one, and then I'll turn it back over to Brandon. But this is just to kind of get you started. So box one is editor picks. Maybe box two is share your story. Okay, so I'm gonna write down real quick. Share your story. And what can that mean? That can mean a ton of different things. There's so many different ways you can go with that. That can be, how did you fall into the promo business? What's your favorite part of the promo business? What are the biggest projects that you've worked on? Or what are the things that you've seen that are popular for the industry? What's going on in your company, right? Are you maybe taking a trip? So that's a way to kind of dive a little bit into that personal side of your life without getting so entrenched and exposing everything about who you are. You can protect yourself a little bit more, but sharing your story. So go ahead, fill out the rest of those boxes. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to take this and use it as a cycle. Use that to, when you're using your grid planner, to kind of start looking at, hey, I'm going to post one editor pick on Monday. Tuesdays is going to be my share my story. Wednesdays is going to be the next thing. Thursdays is going to be the next thing. So I hope that these helpful tips are something that you guys can use and adopt when you're building out your own personal brand. But these were some go-to things that it took me forever to figure out. So please don't make the same mistakes that I did. And if you ever have any questions, my Gold Bond Instagram is Gold Bond Gal Britney. Please send me a DM. I would love to collaborate with you, and maybe we can swap stories together, and that can be a fun way to engage or get started. So I hope this wasn't too long for you and you guys found something useful. If you have any other questions or feedback, let me know. But without further ado, Brandon, do you have any thoughts on that?
That was amazing. A lot of those tips, like, I mean, obviously I've been doing social media for quite a while too. And I'm like, oh, Brandon, dude. So yeah, that's fantastic. One of the things that I wrote down that I really liked is the anxiety of consistency. We harp on consistency so much as social media, content providers and stuff like that, but don't let that be the thing that's holding you back from doing it. I love that your idea is I just post every week, or I post 2 or 3 times a week, and that's my consistency. Mm-hmm. If you set that hard schedule and you miss that time, it's 11:29. I got to wait to hit post for 30 more seconds, right?
Yeah.
So I love that part. The one question that I do want to kind of ask you, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's the major question I think that holds a lot of people that are watching back from doing social media, is what happens when you give too much of your brand to a company, and then how do you separate yourself from that company?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So that goes back to that whole, when we first started our profile name, right? And it says Gold Bond Britney. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. I hope everybody in Gold Bond hears that. But let's just say hypothetically it was me, and I came to Promo Corner. Hopefully by me building that brand and they're noticing me, all I have to do is just swap my name over and then start using Promo Corner content the same way I once did Gold Bond content. And it really doesn't seem like too much of a change. But you can also use social media, I would hope, to leverage that transition in your life and talking about how exciting it is when you're sharing your story, right? I get to challenge myself in a new way and adopt my professional skill set and use it here at Promo Corner instead of Gold Bond, right? So I hope that kind of answers the question. That's a super tough one, and I totally get it. You kind of like hook yourself into this company so much that if something changes, how do you keep going? Hopefully you've built your base up nicely so that you can kind of transition and your people will keep following.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, that's one of the things I actually talked to Tim Hill a little bit about when he was on one of these, was when he made the transition out of the promo industry into the podcasting industry, he kept his base, and being able to post on social media was just so helpful to him, making that transition easy. So, definitely. Okay. You gave your Instagram. Is there any other way that people can reach out to you other than DM on Instagram?
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this out with a precautionary tale, because I'm not as familiar with Facebook. So I'm really bad at it. I do have one, but I'm really bad at I don't know why. My brain just cannot connect the dots. Why are there so many buttons? That's why I like Instagram. But of course, if you reach out to Gold Bond on any of our profiles, we get to check that. That's one of the fun things about my job, is I actually get to work alongside the social media team. So any of those messages that you guys feed into any of our platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that, we will get a hold of it and you will find your way to yours truly in some form or fashion.
That is fantastic. Again, thank you so much, Britney. It was amazing. I took a ton of notes. So I definitely am you're going to see some changes in my social too.
If I see you with pink and teal backgrounds, I'll know what's up. Get it, boy.
Well, that is going to do it for Express Training Bites. Make sure to check out next Thursday at Promo Corner's Facebook page to see who we got upcoming then. Thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your week.
Guys.